Hello, welcome back for more jobs to be done. We started this morning with Jim Cowbeck and Scott Burleson, who kind of gave us the overview of what jobs to be done is. Now we are back. We have Beat and Yan to share with us case studies, right, on how they apply jobs to be done using their customer-focused innovation approach. So over to you, Yan. Over to you, Beat, to share.
Thank you. Thank you, Eugene. Good
Thanks.
evening. It's morning here. We're sitting in Europe, and it's really a great pleasure to be in this program. This is about growth. This is about innovation with jobs to be done. If you can go to the next slide, Jan. Hello?
I did.
You did? Okay. It's frozen. This is about digital transformation. Digital transformation really has become a key driver for growth. Many leading companies are driving this. They're driving they're digitalizing the customer interface. They can gain a lot of growth behind this, and it's really a top priorities of CEOs. About 75% of CEOs today, found in a BCG study, say digital transformation is a top priority. COVID over the last 2-3 years really gave this a booster, but it was already a trend before. Adding to this, that we have a lot of new technologies coming out: artificial intelligence, blockchain, metaverse, but also a lot of material biotech innovation. It really has become, innovation has become a hyper-dynamic environment. And in our experience, we really see organizations and teams in an overdrive. We see that there are so many ideas, so many initiatives, and the question that we'd like to ask with customer-focused innovation is really how to deal with this. Jan, over to you.
Yeah, so as Beat has mentioned, in our experience, the companies that we work with and the organizations that we work with, there is not a lack of ideas. The problem is not that they have too few ideas, I'm sorry, but rather that they have much too many ideas. So we experience most of the innovation organizations and teams that they're rather drowning in ideas and options, as Beat has mentioned them. So different technologies always come around. There's so much to do in digital. So companies are drowning in too many ideas. What we want to show you today is how jobs to be done can help you focus and not drown in too many ideas, but really from a customer point of view, from an outside in perspective, know which ideas are much more likely to succeed in the market. And that is really what jobs to be done can bring. And our customer focused innovation process can bring a focus to the sea of ideas so you don't drown in them. This is where EventBridge comes in usually, where we say we are about finding the winning ideas from the customer view, as I've mentioned before. We work in 3 different ways. So either we doing turnkey projects that we deliver ourselves, or we coach teams to apply our CFI process. And then we do kind of smaller scale injection workshops where we just get, for example, get to know jobs to be done and get a first feel of it. We usually work for either the larger companies of this world or technology startups. So this is our client base. And today we're going to look at 2 cases from larger clients. One was a turnkey project and the other one was a coaching project. So back to you, Beat. How can jobs to be done help us in this whole mess of too many ideas?
Yeah, let's dive in. We have 2 principles, 2 things that we say help to prevent drowning on a high level. The first one is relevant validation for the innovation ideas that you have with navigating power. So the new idea or the initiative has to really propose or promise a value to the market, to the customer. This sounds trivial, but we take this very much at heart. The value proposition has to be defined early on. It has to evolve over time when the development takes place. And especially it has to be relevant. Relevant means it has to solve a problem. That is really relevant. A value proposition that does not resonate, that does not solve a problem is really fuzzy and useless. The second element that a value proposition has to have, it has to have navigating power. What do we mean by this? Navigating power, it has to inspire and guide the internal teams who are working in the development, management, developers, product managers, etc. But it also has to have it has to be compelling and navigating power for the market, for the customers, because an innovation always has to change a behavior in a certain sense, and therefore the value proposition has to be compelling. So that's the number one principle that we apply. The second one is it has to be a fact-based view of the problem. Innovation typically has a lot of risks, can go wrong, and absorbs a lot of resources. That's why we say a fact-based view with data-driven, researched, validated understanding of the customer problems or the pain points that customers have is absolutely critical. And the second one is this word concrete, has to be really concrete. Managers, executives typically are very strong in conceptual thinking to manage complexity, but customers, consumers, users are very concrete. And that's why we say concrete unsolved problem understanding is critical. And here, jobs to be done can help. Jobs to be done, if you go to the next slide, really, what does it give you? It gives, first of all, an instant outside-in perspective of the customer problem. The people don't want a drill, they want a hole in the wall. When this sentence is said, people instantly switch to the problem, to the challenge that has to be solved. They see the hole and all the problems that come with it to create this hole in the wall. So that's the first thing that jobs to be cut down can bring. The second thing jobs to be done is stable over time. We have afterwards some examples to show that. Why is it stable over time? Well, solutions, innovations, technology comes and goes, but the problem, the unmet needs of human beings stay. So that's why it is stable over time. And the third strength of jobs to be done concept is that it gives a logic or a language to make innovation concrete. It's a language that can be used internally to talk about the customer problem and to focus on the customer problem. And it also is useful for then marketing and messaging to exploit and leverage these innovations. So back over to you, Jan, to illustrate how jobs to be done is stable over time.
So Beat mentioned it. We're going to go through a little bit of examples. So, I mean, what is jobs to be done really? It's from our perspective, it's a name for a thought or for an idea or a logic or a way to think, if you want. And what it really is about is the following thought. If you really want to do customer-focused innovation, don't think about the technology or the solution first, but think about what do your customers want to achieve. What are their goals? What are their purposes that they want to get done? And only then, if you understand this purpose and the pain points when it comes to achieving that purpose, only then turn to the solution. Now, the beauty of this, which is shown here on the slide, is that jobs tend to be very, very stable over time, but solutions or solution ideas come and go. I mean, you can have many different ways of thinking about how can you achieve the job to send a message. And we given some examples. I don't know if it's really historically accurate, but you can see there are very different means, there are very different solutions and technologies that you can use to achieve the job to send a message. So from stone writing to really sending a person from somewhere to another place, bringing with him or her a message, up to WhatsApp, Discord, and all the other different tools or Slack that we have now to send a message. The job is always the same. So that is what people want to achieve, but the technology, of course, has changed. And the same thing is true for many, many different other areas in our lives, and especially in innovation. So in innovation, we say focus on the job first, try to understand what exactly is the job that your customers want to achieve, and only then work backwards to the solution. Another example, just to show you one of these key benefits of being stable over time. If you look at, for example, the job to be entertained or to play a game, there were very different ancient games. People, human beings, are playful beings. They started very early on developing different games. And there is a series of technological development between there and today where we use AI or the VR goggles or whatever other tools that we have available to achieve the job to be entertained. So technology comes and goes, solutions come and go, but the job, they stay stable over time. So this is something that can be really, really helpful not to drown in many different ideas, because what you focus on, the job that you want to focus on, that one is stable over time, no matter how quickly the solution might develop. It's just the last example. I'm just going to show this. For example, to listen to music, same thing. Technology comes and goes, changes over time. Now we use Spotify and all those streaming services. But the job to listen to music has been there for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years. So that's one of the key advantages. You get really something stable to stand on in this whole quickly changing technology of today. Let me hand over back to you, Beat, and dive a little bit deeper into different cases.
Yeah, I mean, we have come to the conviction. Wendbridge works with jobs to be done logic since more than 15 years. And over these 15 years, when we were pioneering jobs to be done in the years 2000, we really came to the conviction it works in every industry. It even works in government. We have now a project where it works, where we apply it in politics. And this conviction really comes from, I'd like to illustrate here. These are recent examples, job to be done cases that Wendbridge has done in various industries. Now you can guess which product or which industry is behind it. Let's make an example. We have the top right, to prepare a meal. That was a job that we were exploring and developing innovative concepts. And there were three different companies from three different industries behind it. One was a ready-made meal company. That was Nestle, a consumer goods company. Ready-made food is to prepare a meal. But behind there was also a pots and pan company. So kitchen cookware appliances, premium company, which is very strong in Europe, very premium. That was also about prepare a meal. And the last one was a white goods company, like kitchen stoves and ovens and steamers and microwaves, etc. It was also about preparing a meal. So it really shows that it is solution agnostic, and then the job stays the same. There were two examples that we try to pick out here, which is really to go from A to B. That was done for the Swiss Railway company, which we will show you a bit more insights into it. And the second one is to teach children, which was a US company that develops hardware and software for teachers and schools, for classrooms. And I hand over now to Jan to introduce the case for this software company for teachers.
So thank you, Beat. So we will start with the last case to teach children. And as Beat has mentioned it's about a software that this company developed. So the setting is this one. They felt like there was an opportunity to develop a software that would support teachers in their daily lives, but also in planning their lessons and planning their month. And in a more or less customer focused way, so they did some kind of interviews beforehand with customers. They developed a prototype of that software, and over the different rounds they did and iterations they did, from a very specific small thing that they started with, it piled up ideas, and different things were added onto the prototype. When suddenly they were exactly in the position that we mentioned before, they had 100 plus different feature ideas, very different things were in the software. So from planning your month to grading to analysis of how the lesson went. So a variety of different things you have to imagine. And suddenly they weren't sure which of these things is actually something that teachers want. Which of these should we invest in? Because you have to imagine, if you then go into development, that takes a lot of time, takes a lot of resources, a lot of money. And suddenly they lost confidence in which of these elements were actually the ones that would be helpful for teachers, and that in the end teachers of course would be willing to pay for. I mean, they want to sell this software, and they kind of got lost. They got lost in the different options and the many different options that you can develop. That's when they approached us. That's when they came to us and said, hey, we have this prototype, we have this software developed, but where exactly should we put our bets? What exactly is the value proposition? They had some ideas, and we'll go into this later on. For example, it is about saving time, or we could help teachers save time, but it wasn't really clear, and there was no conviction within the team to really go for one option. So that's when we went in and applied our CFI process, which is shown here, in a coaching approach. So they were in Seattle, we were sitting in Zurich, but it was a remote project where we trained the UX team on applying our project on a business case. Like, the question was, what's the value proposition for this new software? What you see here is the process that we apply. That's CFI, Customer Focused Innovation. It always has these 4 steps: frame, discover, which are about the needs. There it's about understanding the job. And then 2 steps that are about solutions: spin and develop. I won't go into detail too much here. We will go through the case along those steps. Basically, frame is about kind of really framing, scoping the project from a job to be done perspective. Discover is understanding the job and the pain points that people have. And spin and develop is making sure that you keep the focus and that you're actually developing things that pay into these pain points. For each of the steps, we have proprietary tools and unique tools developed over the past 15 years. I won't go into this now. You will see it at hand when we go into the case. But for each of these steps, we have different tools to apply and develop different tools together with our clients to get the process done in a very efficient way. And Beat now is going to show you the first one, the job hierarchy. So what does it mean to frame a project from the jobs to be done perspective?
Thank you, Jan. Starting with jobs to be done is quite easy. Very often there is a brainstorming, and teams go into brainstorming, and within 10 minutes, they have the whiteboard full of jobs that the customers or users try to achieve. Imagine you are a teacher. You are teaching in elementary school, so small kids. Do a mental brainstorming now, and immediately you will have jobs about why is a teacher a teacher? What does a teacher want to achieve? For example, prepare children for life, but also make a living as a teacher, etc. You have also jobs on a very lower level, like preparing a lesson, like firing up some computer slides, like showing a video on YouTube. So very quickly, you have a lot of jobs, and that's one challenge really in jobs to be done, to organize it. Organize all these dozens or hundreds of jobs that you come up with, so that it's useful. And for this, we use what we call a job to be done hierarchy, which basically organizes all these jobs on the different levels. There is a higher level, which asks more about why, a higher why. There is a lower level, which goes much more towards a journey thinking, customer journey thinking, which you have here, to plan the week, to prepare a lesson, to deliver the lesson, to improve for the next time, but also to manage parents who want to know about their kids, or to exchange with colleagues Um, and we use this hierarchy to organize, to scope, and to frame as a hypothesis before we go into exploration session. So this for us is the starting point. And we really recommend to, when you do a job to be done project, that you first put an order in a pyramid or in a hierarchy like this before you go into exploration, interviews, etc. It's almost like a guide for the interviewer, for the exploration session, to know where to look for. Afterwards, there comes a second element, which we find absolutely critical. The job by itself is useful to give a perspective and a logic, but what is really key is what we call metrics. The power of jobs to be done comes with metrics. The metric is, how do customers or users measure if a job goes well or not? You can imagine, if you go through a hierarchy like this, that you have dozens, if not hundreds of metrics. Expectations that can go wrong, things that people want to avoid, things that take time, things that are not possible, things that are bugging people. So all these are very granular metrics that we draw out of the exploration. There are two examples of metrics here on this slide. For example, to refocus students as quickly as possible when their attention wanders, or when there is an interruption in the class. This was a very specific metrics which was coming out frequently when we talk to teachers. We have an interview technique to draw them out. We don't want to go into detail here, but we want to really convey the message that jobs to be done works best when you look for these specific metrics, expectations that customers have or measure if a job goes well or not. You have to imagine that we have in total 50 to 100 of these metrics explored, taken out of the interviews, and then used for the next step in the CFI, customer focused innovation process, which Jan will show now.
So basically what we have done now is we have done the step frame. We have done the first part of Discover, which is qualitative interviews, as Beat has explained. And now we kind of put on another level, which is the second part of Discover, which is quantitative validation. So what that means is we go out, we do a survey. Here it was 163 teachers, and ask them to rate each of these job metrics that we selected previously. How important is it to them? And they rate on a scale of 1 to 5. And how fulfilled are they today? How satisfied are they today with these metrics? And what you get is what we call a value map that is shown here. So each of these dots that you see on the map is one of those job metrics, is exactly this refocusing after an interruption has occurred, for example. Each of these dots is one of those. And of course, the metrics that are most interesting for innovation are the pain points, are the things that are very, very important on the right, but not yet fulfilled. So a very low fulfillment level. So that's the opportunity space to focus on. And just to give you a sense of what these were, we're going to look at 3 of those job metrics that came out of the study. So this is the real data. This is the real result of the study. For example, 3 of them, so in this group there on the lower right, you say they all had to do with the focus, with student attention. And that was a big theme throughout the whole study. And we realized it's really about refocusing the students. How can we actually capture the focus? So this is what we meant in the very beginning with a fact base of unsolved problems. These 3 things are very, very important, but not yet solved for teachers. So the conclusion is, how can you position, of course, a software to address this? And Beat will talk a little bit more in detail about it.
Yeah, it was a total eye-opener for the team, because it basically transformed the view that they looked at their solution, their prototype, before. These 3 pain points, and some more pain points, which were linked to attention, we're going into a process in the spin phase that's now solution focused, and it led to a totally new value proposition. Before, they thought, well, this software probably helps to save time when the teacher plans a lesson. There was the pain point that teachers spend too much time on a weekend to prepare the next week. The pain point was there, but it was not so really strong. The pain points about attention were much more stronger, and it totally changed the way they looked at the value proposition. We went through this process. We have some tools to sharpen the value proposition and to make the value proposition really resonating with the customers. And it's a creative process, which is really guided by the results and guided by the tool. And we came up with a new value proposition, which we called One Click, All Eyes to the Front. One click on the software, and you get all the eyes of the students, of the pupils in the room to the front. This value proposition, one click, all eyes to the front, really has navigating power. It really tells in what direction this prototype should evolve. It really tells developers what features they should now accelerate and push. It really resonates. It's relevant because it is directly linked to the pain points that we have identified before. And it will be a success in the market. This company is now in the process of developing features that support this validation, one click, all eyes. They will go out into user testing to iteratively to qualify that, and then they will launch it in the market. And we are 100% convinced that this solution will have a key impact in the market. So taking it back, value proposition with a navigating power directly linked to the pain points that we identified before, identified with the jobs to be done logic. This really is one key element to avoid the droning in too many ideas. And would like to move on now to the next case from the Swiss Railway Company. Yeah.
Perfect. So just to give you in the last couple of minutes another glimpse in the second case from the Swiss Railway Company, a very similar starting point. So they developed a digital travel companion. So it was an app that basically could accompany you during your travels when you get from A to B. And their problem was they had 400 plus feature ideas, and they didn't know how to arrange this on the roadmap. Like, it's very, very different ideas. You can imagine you can do a lot of different things if you do it like a digital twin for your travels from A to B. It was not only in trains, but also with cars, or renting a car, renting a scooter, and all the different things that were in there. So many, many, many different things, but how to focus? How can you find the 10 winning features? And we applied the same process that we showed before. So our CFI process, we started out with the hierarchy that is shown here, just to give you a sense of the job to get from A to B. We don't have to go into details. We started out here, went into qualitative interviews, and then also quantified the metrics that people have behind each of those steps. And we'll just give you a quick glimpse on what the results look like. We analyze it in a different way. So Beat will show it in the what we call the Job Journey Navigator, where you can really see where the opportunities are along the whole journey, along these whole steps there below where it says Job Journey.
Yeah, what do we see here? First of all, you see these little numbers from 1 going to 69. These were the 69 metrics that we have explored before, that we have drawn out of interviews, and they were put into an order of the journey. The journey goes from to plan the trip, prepare, stay informed while you are on the road, go to the means of transport. Jan mentioned can be a train, can be a bus, can be a bike. Then to be on the way to travel, then to deal with interruptions, because also there are always interruptions in travel. It can be delays, etc. to change and then to arrive at the final destination. So all the 69 metrics are put in an order, in a sequence, and then what you see is two curves. One is the importance curve, the blue one. How important are these metrics for you? And the second one is the fulfillment curve, the red one, which shows how satisfied are you today with your current solutions that you use in this. And what you see here is, let's show an example. There is, for example, this metric to quickly know if you need to run to catch the train. So the situation is you go to the bus station or to the train station, and now you have to people want to know if they have to run or if they have to walk slowly. In other words, is the train about to leave, or do I have enough time to catch the train? And this is came clearly out in the exploration. This was put into this validation phase, into the quant phase, and you clearly and it came out as a pain point. So people were finding this metric really important, and they were not satisfied with it. And so you can see in this navigator where are the trouble spots. If you go on the next slide, you see there are two areas where there's really trouble. It's the moment you go to the means of transport, there are a lot of pain points, important unfulfilled needs, and then to deal with interruptions, delays, etc., and change the mean of transport. So these are the trouble spots, and they were used as a going in for prioritizing the feature ideas that they had, which Jan will show you now.
Yeah. So now you have everything you need to sort through the 400 ideas. You know from the fact-based level what are the pain points. And what we did with the team then is what we call solution tindering. So probably all of you know Tinder. It's kind of a date matching app where you can swipe right or left if you like that person or not. We developed the same thing for solution ideas. So what we would now want to know, of course, is which solution ideas that we have really address the pain points that customers have. So how do they match? And for this, we developed an app where on the very top, you see those 400 different solution ideas. So it's asked for one specific solution idea. It shows one pain point. So one of these, I think 15 it was in the end, really strong customer pain points. And each and every one can rate for themselves and decide, does the solution idea that we have address, match, help to solve the pain point or not. So if you swipe on the left, that means the solution idea does not solve the pain point. If you swipe on the right, then that means it does address the pain point. And you can go quickly through those different ideas. You can also say, okay, a part of the team takes care of these 200 ideas, the other part of the team takes care of these 200 ideas. And you quickly sort through each and every one on an app. If rather than being on Facebook and Twitter and whatever, you do a quick solution tindering, and then after a certain amount of time, a week or so, you get the results. And the results, I cannot show you the real results, but this is what comes out of it. So you will see which pain points are really addressed well with different feature ideas, and which feature ideas address a lot of different pain points. So that's the other perspective. And then you can really go very precisely and say, okay, we have feature number 2 in this case, for example, that addresses a lot of different pain points. It matched with many different pain points. So we should prioritize it. Or you have another case, for example, if you look at from top down on the pain point 2, nobody thought that pain point has some feature idea that actually addresses it. So there you can do very targeted, very specific ideation, because there's an unsolved problems that even in the list of 400, we don't have an idea for. And this way you can quickly filter out through the 400 ideas. This doesn't take a lot of time, and you have a clear focus on the priorities. So that's the second part, a fact-based view on the pain points, and then you really find out what the hero features are.
So this gave an overview of a snapshot into the customer-focused innovation methodology. How do we apply jobs to be done? It is really helpful not to draw in ideas. Jobs to be done really gives this perspective of outside into the customer problem. It is stable over time. It is solution agnostic, and it is a language that you can use internally to manage innovation and develop new ideas. We offer this as turnkey projects, as Jan mentioned at the beginning, but we also offer it as a coaching. Our projects are sometimes they are quite small in terms of coaching when we work, for example, for startups or for smaller companies, and they can also be pretty extensive if you work for multinational companies. So get in touch with us if you want to know more about jobs to be done, if you want to know more how to apply it. We're very open and very accessible. We always like to learn from different cases. That's really that is our inspiration when we hear some new challenges where jobs to be done could be applied. And then we discuss and we do a lot of calls on this without even thinking about the project. How are we standing in time, Eugene?
I think we're a little
We
bit
are
over.
good. So actually, we have some questions lined up. Maybe we just wait for. Yeah, I'm good. I think we're good at time. We have some questions lined up, but just a quick. No, I can totally relate. I mean, I've been in the in this software. I mean, working with software teams, right, for about more than 15 years. You're right. There's no lack of features to build. Right, at the end of it, everybody is like always about negotiating, and then how do you negotiate, right? And then the timing gets shorter. You can't deliver in time. People get angry and frustrated. And then when you drives out, at the end of the outcome is, okay, the feature is there, but who's going to use it? Who's using it? Does it really solve a pain point? That, I mean, I can totally relate to this, and that's why I think jobs to be done was, kind of like that secret sauce. When I saw it, I was like, okay, there's so many areas we can use to help to prioritize features. How do we know what to focus on? And I love your term, how you say navigating. How do you navigate in internal teams? How do you bring people along? How do you bring people along this journey? To help them to achieve a good outcome. For the project, for their customers. And your slide on all the jobs that you have helped, right? All the different case studies. That was so impressive. Thank you for sharing that. And I guess the last thing, just a side note, I think can you let us, I mean, if you have more information about that one click, all eyes front thing, right? I think we may need something here in Singapore, right? To get everybody to focus, because we're kind of moving a lot into learning from home, self-paced learning studies and stuff. So I'll be interested to find out more. Just moving on to this next last part, right, is really some questions that we have. So we put out some questions there, and we can get you to reply to them. Can we have the first question up? Yeah, can you see it? It's a teacher software. How do you come up with the job matrix?
Okay, can I jump in? So first of all, thank you so much, Eugene, for all that you've said before. For the teacher case, so where also this question is aiming towards, go to our website, www.ventbridge.com. There is a section that we call knowledge, and there you will find different blog posts that we have, and on there is basically the case study of how we went through that software. On our YouTube channel, you can also find an additional webinar where we talk with the client. So the client talks through the process and explains a little bit more, gives a little bit more insight into the case. Okay, so here for the questions for the teacher software, how do you come up with metrics? That comes from teachers. So we do the hierarchy. You might remember the triangle as an inside-out hypothesis. We do this with the team. We have to discuss it a couple of times. And then we go out to teachers and do one-on-one, usually one-on-one. We also do groups, but we prefer one-on-one interviews, 1 hour interviews, where we talk to a teacher and go through the different steps in the hierarchy and uncover the job metrics that they have in each of the steps. So they come from the teachers themselves. It's not that we write them, it's not that we invent them, but we have techniques and ways of asking the question to the teacher so that they tell us what are their job metrics. So it comes from qualitative interviews in this case.
Thank you, Jan. Maybe just to build on that, right? You talk about interviews, one-on-one interviews, very similar to user research. In like design thinking and stuff. Is there a difference, or is there a more? How do you conduct this kind of interview? Maybe we can share a bit more.
Yeah. Let me take this up. I mean, we use different methodologies like laddering. There is a special questioning technique that we use. What is the difference to, for example, design thinking? We say we have clearly defined what we look for. And sometimes we see in these user research interviews that it's not clearly defined what you look for. But we have defined that these are these metrics, these expectation metrics that the users expect. They have a clear syntax. We have a questioning technique to draw them out. And I think that's the biggest difference to design thinking. I would not say it's different. I would say it's really complementary. We work with design thinking groups together. For example, the D School in Berlin, and we really help them to make it more concrete and to really draw out metrics that are then afterwards useful and actionable. So it's complementing, if you want.
Great, thank you for that, Beat. Can we have the next question, please? Yep. How do you get the data for importance and fulfillment? Is it a survey? How do you do?
Yeah. So what we showed before are two cases where we did a survey, but as I mentioned before, we work with startups and larger international organizations. So sometimes you cannot do a survey, and for example, with startups, we might do this on a hypothesis basis. So we build a hypothesis, but best practice is, yes, we go out, we do a survey, we have a software ourselves where we run the survey ourselves, or we use, these softwares like Qualtrics and so on. And there is a specific way on how to build the survey and how to ask the question. But in the end, yes, it's a survey. In both cases, if I'm not mistaken, it was an online survey, where in the teacher case, it was 160 teachers. And I think in the Swiss Railway case, it was 600 or 700 Swiss residents who filled out an online survey. It has different elements. So we always say it has basically three elements. We have a screener part where we select the right people, some profiling attitude questions, because it can be very interesting then to analyze the data and look at different segments, different attitudinal behavioral segments that can really reveal very, very interesting differences then in the needs. And then, of course, the battery of where they rate the different job metrics in terms of importance and fulfillment. So yes, it's from a survey.
All right, thank you. I think the next question is similar. So can we flash the next one? Yeah, so I think you already touched on this, the tools a bit. Can we go on to the next question? Thank you. Sorry?
I can't see the question, so we have to read it to me.
Yeah, actually, I did. Okay, I'll just. The question is, how do you find the right level of job? Because you have the hierarchy.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the important part, right? I think probably the most important part of jobs to be done is the scoping, right? So when you work with your clients, how do you know that you have reached the right level? And then that's where you then continue the rest. Can you share that more on that? Thank you.
Absolutely. That is absolutely crucial. And we spend a lot of time at the beginning because it's really about garbage in, garbage out. And if you have the wrong hypothesis at the beginning, we don't get the right results. The way we do this is, first of all, we talk to spend a lot of time with the internal stakeholders, internal teams, Can also be they're coming from the sales function, for example, or they're coming from champions internally who know the market very well. But we know this could be biased. Therefore, it's a hypothesis. So we develop this with the team internally, and then we go outside and we validate it. We validate it with customers, users, consumers, and we have a saying internally with us is trust the process. The customers will tell us immediately if we are right or wrong. They tell us if we are on the right level, if you are too high up or if you are too low. They tell us if you use the wrong words, and they tell us if a step is missing. And we really trust the process that the customers will tell us right away at the beginning. I remember a project on diabetes, and we said that the focus job in the middle would be to lead a normal life. And we had instant pushback from the diabetes patients. It was T1 diabetes. So they were born with diabetes and say, hey, how can you say that? Me as a diabetes patient, I will never lead a normal life. What are you talking about? You have no idea about diabetes. You talk like this. And we immediately changed the approach. We went back to the drawing board. We explored with this first 2-3 patients how it has to be, and then we stabilized. We call that stabilized the hierarchy, and it was right. So it's an iterative process. First internally hypothesis, then validating and testing with users quickly, and then we go on.
Is that
But it's
coupled with
exactly-
your interviews, or is it just a quick what do you think about this kind of?
Can be quick test interview with people that are in this field, or it can be in the interviews first, in the first few interviews that we do.
Right,
I mean,
right.
but maybe let's add something else to framing. Framing is about this hierarchy, this job hierarchy on the one hand, but framing is also about the business objective. We link a job to be done project is not just done for the sake of the project. It always has a business intention behind it. Can be growth. It can be winning market share. It can be defending against the competitors. It can be about profitability, getting more premium or improving the margins. So we also spend a lot of time in framing on the business goals. What's really the goal? And then we translate this goal into jobs to be done. So this translation work is also key, because what you really want with our projects is to have impact, and impact is creating useful, great innovation that will have an impact in the market. So that's the second element of framing.
Yeah, ultimately, I think it's still about the survival of the company to do well so that they can continue to innovate. I think that's an important point. Thank you for sharing that. I think we have time for one last question about product development. So have you? You talked about a lot of this is about the front stage discovery, right? I mean, have you move it downstream where you're talking about working with agile teams, software delivery teams?
Yeah. So I can elaborate a little bit. So there is what you would maybe say something like an ideal but theoretical process where you would first start with the jobs to be done completely solution free, and then go into the development and then use agile or other methods. Now the reality is that usually that is not the case. Companies are in the middle of developing something, and then the question arises of where should we go, and that's okay. I mean, that's not. I don't mean this as a critique, but that's usually the way companies function. They're working on an idea, and then they're kind of getting lost. So ideally, we say, of course, as early as you can in the development process, try to include user needs as early as you can. It will speed up the whole development process. It will save you from iterations that add no value and that get nowhere. But it works really well in an agile environment. In the second project with the Swiss railway companies that we haven't mentioned here now, there were agile teams, and they used our results in various different sprints to really and work really on very, very specific, even tiny features. So it was the question of how exactly should we write the push notification that the train is late. And that was a very, very specific project, and only about how should information look like in case of disruption when you're traveling. And it was the basis for sprints, where they actually focused, or much more focused, much more concrete, and it works very well in an agile environment. Ideally, you would do something like this very early on. The reality is that it happens very often somewhere in the middle of the development process, but the earlier, the better. And it does work, in our experience, really well with agile teams. So they can really, it helps them to focus their sprints and really work on customer focused data.
I think it's great for like backlog grooming. I think, if you're familiar,
Yes.
I mean, with Agile, they like to the product manager will come in. Okay, I need to groom the backlog. I guess this is where it really happens. This is where it really makes sense, right? Again, not killing the software developers with like 1,000 features. I mean, you say 400 to 20 to 10
Priority.
features,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's great, right? That's great news. We can all finish our work, create value for our customers, and go home on time, right? So it's great work-life balance, definitely. We just have one more. I think there's time for one more. We just flash the question. Yeah, I think I don't know. Just there's one about features being all important. How do you? Maybe it's about stakeholder management, right? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I yeah. What do you think? Something.
It's a great question.
What's the question?
Oh, sorry, go on. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. If in the event all features are important to users, how do you effectively rank their priorities?
Yeah. How do we rank the priorities? Well,
I guess have you even encountered a situation, right? Is this really just hypothetical to you?
Yeah. Can you answer? I didn't get the question.
So the way I understand, the way I understand it, in a certain sense, you could argue for all of the features are kind of important, right? So and then how do you make this translation from what maybe we find to really ranking features? So our logic here would be to say, don't try to rank features, and don't ask customers to try to rank the features, because they will give very, very misleading answers. Customers are not that great at, on a solution level, on a feature level, to say what is important to them. They will always be skeptical about very innovative things, but they say, I won't use feature X, but if you introduce it with the right value proposition and the right sales story, in the end, they will use it. So if you ask them on a solution level, you get very wrong priorities. It can be very misleading. So what we try to do is, don't ask them about the features. Don't ask them about the different ideas that you have. Ask them about which problem is the biggest one. Which problem that you have when you try to get a job done is the one that is killing you and is really annoying. If you know this, you can link it to a certain feature. So we don't prioritize, if you want. We don't prioritize directly the features. We prioritize problems, and that helps us to prioritize the features. So in a sense, not all of the features are important to users. What we try to say is, hey, if you have 1,000 different ideas, yes, all of these 1,000 things add a little bit of value, but where is the market? Where really in the market is the big ticket idea that you should focus on, and leave the rest aside? So that's what we do. And I hope this answers the question. If I have understood it correctly.
Maybe I can add, there is this, from the pain points that we identify, the next step is then the requirements for the solution. So we translate the pain points often into requirements, and then into technical specifications. So there is this step approach, and sometimes you can measure it. If the pain point is that it takes no time to do something, let's say time, and afterwards the requirement says, yeah, this solution has to really minimize the time to get something done. And then technical development, you can start to measure the time. But we know from the beginning it's about time, and then we can measure the technical solution about the time. And then very often, in the next step, we can go into a concept test, which we call. We basically test the concept where we explain the features on a feature level, but we link it to the promise, to the value proposition, and then we see the ratings of the concepts, and then we see suddenly the feature is really understood and appreciated because a feature brings a value.
Can I
Was that
add
clear?
just quickly something? I think I understand. I'm sorry. I probably have. Now I understand the question. So theoretically, what could happen is you have 400 ideas. You do a survey, and it turns out all of the 400 ideas are equally great at addressing pain points. I think that's the worry behind the. And then so okay, so one thing is it never happened before. It can, of course, it can happen. It can happen that is the case. But then if that would be, I mean, if you have a list of 10 and you still need to decide between those 10, and these 10 are really helping customers, of course, then you can introduce business criteria. How much resources do we need to develop this? Do we have the capabilities? What do we think is actually, are they going to be willing to pay for it? Can we capitalize it or not? So yes, at a certain point, you have to introduce maybe business criteria, which is absolutely fine. And you should do this at some point. But so usually if you have reduced it from 400 to 10, that's already a great reduction. If you have to select more, then of course, time to market, cost of development, and different criteria then come in, but these are business criteria. So
Great, thank you. I think analogy came to mind, right? It's like if you ask people, okay, what features you want, and you give them a buffet, they say, I want the buffet, right? And they want, I want a buffet, right? So I mean, it's
everything.
cost. I'm gonna get 400 features. Why not, right? But I think you made a very good point that we are not very sure on that. All right, what solutions provide, but we are very clear exactly what we need to get done, which is really tying back to jobs to be done. We know what we're trying to get, what's the outcomes, what we are very clear as consumers or human beings. We are very clear on what we're trying to get out of that particular solution, or why we hire it, right? So we should actually find that out first. Then leave the solutioning to the actual to the people delivering the solution, right? And then use concept testing to really say, okay, which one works before we actually develop. So what a great I think last point, right, just to end, coming back to human centricity, was this, we kind of like started the day focusing on that, and now we're going to end the day on human centricity as well. So wonderful. All right, thank you again, Beat. Thank you, Jan, for giving our time and sharing us. And again, we go to vanbridge.com, right? I mean, you have case studies there. You have
vanbridge.com,
and
connect through LinkedIn.
Right. Yeah. Right. Thank you for that.
Eugene, thank you very much. And thanks to the NUS. So thank you very much for having us.